Salome. Today I just want to present a short video about how I found the creation energy teaching and what led me to search for and ultimately quite quickly find this teaching. Um, Essentially, I guess it could start growing up as a young child. I had a decent upbringing, good father, good mother, who brought me up in a very free way. My father's from the Middle East and my mother's from Scotland. I was brought up in the UK, and they were from obviously different backgrounds, different cultures, and they encouraged my brother and I to basically think for ourselves, think things through. They didn't force us on any particular path of religious thinking or any other indoctrinated way of thinking, I guess, other than capitalism, which is quite ingrained. But nothing was ever forced on us as children. So I think that's quite significant for me as a child, and I'm very grateful for that. Um, I was always a very independent thinker anyway as a child, and actually quite viciously independent in a way. I was always very anti-authority as a young boy, and any external authority figures had a real hard time with me, especially when they were trying to force me to do something that I didn't want to do. I was always a peaceful child, though. I wasn't an aggressive boy. I was always curious and going out into nature and playing hide and seek with friends and so on. When I was about probably 9, 10 years old, I had a group of friends in the village that we lived in of about 100 people in the countryside in northwest England. Fields and hedges and forests and big rocky outcrops. We used to go out and play and get lost, and until the sun went down every day. And I was also always very interested in things to do with the mind. And even as a young boy, I remember we used to discuss our dreams as young boys. We'd sit in a group and I'd say, okay, now let's tell dreams, let's discuss our dreams. And all the other, my friends were interested, and we would talk about our dreams for a short amount of time. And then we would persist playing as children and pouncing on one another and fighting one another and throwing darts at one another and all the things that Earth children do on this aggressive world, I guess. Little toy fighting and wrestling one another and so on. It was all in good heart. Yeah, so I want to name those things because I think they're quite significant later on. When I hit my teen years, I started because on account of my viciously independent way of thinking. I really didn't like being told what to do, what I had to do. I always wanted to make my own decision about my own life. So I didn't like external authority, especially when it was very forceful and coercive. I always shied away from that. But this led me to, as a teenager, go my own way, go my own path. And quite frankly, I got myself into a lot of trouble, probably from the age of about 12 years old, right through to about 18, 19 years of age. I essentially went off the rails, got into drugs and alcohol and criminality and all different kinds of things as a teenager. Um, Basically just shunned all authority, went my own way, was disregarded my parents, disrespected the neighbors and the fellow life forms, and didn't really think about anything other than myself. It was like an explosive teen period for me, which actually led me to many dangerous situations in my own life. I had to become very streetwise, as they say, learn about the rules of the streets and how it works in more of a kind of lawless, street-based um, realm of existence where there's lots of things going on and groups of people, gangs of people, drugs dealings and alcohol and fights and all kinds of different dangerous situations that I got myself into, got myself in trouble with the police a lot in those years. Anyway, not to dwell on that for so much. It's what's gone's gone. It's the past. This led me to essentially a crisis in my own consciousness, in my own mind. And by the time I hit the age of 19, I was down and out, rock bottom kind of thing, and questioning my behavior, questioning my way of thinking, questioning the trouble I was getting into, the harm that it was causing for other people, the relationships um, that I was in, and the people that I was hanging around with, spending time with. I was questioning all that. Very quickly, I realized that if I continued in that direction, it would probably be the end of me. And I very quickly changed my attitude. Within a few months, at the age of 19, I started to read books on yoga, meditation. I started to eat healthily and study nutrition. I started to look into the religions of the world, the major world religions, the spiritual traditions, healing modalities, and anything that resonated with health, well-being, purpose, spirituality, a good way of life, respect, ethics, and morals, and everything. I got interested in that very quickly. I was very interested in the moral and ethical principles that are contained within the religions. When I looked into these, particularly Buddhism drew my attention, and Hinduism and the Vedic tradition. I was practicing yoga and meditation at this time, and I looked into various modes of meditation practice. The one that stood out for me the most was the pure mindfulness approach and the Satipatthana method, which I adopted for myself. Anything that had any kind of religious ties, gods and angels and this kind of stuff, I wasn't interested in. I recognized very early that it was the meditation of the clear observation, clarity of the consciousness, and so on, which was the one that made sense to me. So I started to intensively meditate at the age of 19. And I was searching on the internet at this time and finding many different interviews with different people. And I'd been watching so many different things, David Icke and all different kinds of ideas about how the world is, spiritual ideas, and um, the UFO topic, although that didn't really interest me so much. It was more to do with what's the meaning of life? Why do we exist? How did life form and get to the stage that it is today? What's the origin of the universe and all life? And how is everything created? And so on and so forth. That was what was really interested me at the time, at the age of 19. I stumbled upon a website called Conscious Media Network that was hosted by Regina Meredith. It's no longer a thing, but I think Regina is still on the internet. She had this conscious media network where she interviewed countless different people, video interviews. And I was basically going through the list of these interviews over the weeks and months and learning about different ideas, healing modalities, spirituality, and so on. And I stumbled upon a video on this website by Michael Horn in 2008. And Regina interviews Michael, and Michael is presenting the Billy Meyer case. And as soon as I heard this, as soon as Michael was describing this, the analysis, the investigation, the material, and the prophecies and predictions, and the amount of information there, my instant thought was, this is on a different level to everything else that I've come across so far. It's in a different league. It's not the same as what other people are presenting. There's a body of evidence that far transcends everything else that I've looked at over the months. And I wasn't really so interested in the UFO aspect and the pictures, although they kind of blew my mind. I saw it and I thought, well, yeah, of course, of course, there's extraterrestrials, but that's not my main interest. My main interest is what's the purpose of life? Why do we live? Why do we die? And how did the universe come into be? And how should we live? For me, that was going through my teen years. It was, what's the right way to live? Because I knew what the wrong way to live was, because it caused a lot of harm and pain. So I knew there was a better way to live, but where is this contained? And as Michael was doing this short 45-minute interview with Regina, he basically, the thing that he said that got me was there is thousands of pages of contact conversations, 10,000 pages, I think he said, most of which are in the German language. And he said there's something like 50 or 60 books. I don't know how many at that time, 40 books maybe at that time, I can't remember, all in German. So my impulse, the first thought that came into my mind was, okay, I'll learn German. I'll learn German and I'll order some books right away, and that was it. I think the first two books I ordered was the Einführung in die Meditation, the Introduction to Meditation in German, and I ordered I think Decalogue, Dodecalogue, and Arahatasata, which were all in German at the time. Now they're also in English. But I basically ordered these books from Switzerland, from FIGU, and set about learning German through the study of this material. So I got a big dictionary, German English dictionary, and I got the books. First, I think I started with the Introduction to Meditation, and I started to read and translate it. I got found a really nice German woman to help me, to teach me, Dorothea Williamson, who I'm grateful for. She helped me to establish a good foundation in the German language. And yeah, that was basically it. That set me off on the path of learning and studying the works of Billy Edward Albert Meyer, all the different books, and I'd never stopped since. I just continued with my learning and my study of the language through my learning of the language through the study of the teaching. And in 2012, I decided I'd got to a level of proficiency in the language where I was comfortable to then, after several months of consideration, in fact, maybe even a year or more of consideration, careful consideration, decided to become a passive group member, so-called Geisteslehrer Studium member, spiritual teaching study member. The Geisteslehrer is essentially a body of work written by Billy Edward Albert Meyer that is a study course essentially, and formerly known as Geisteslehre, spiritual teaching. Now it's referred to as the creation energy teaching, to which I still study today, each day. I still got a long way to go there. And yeah, that's basically how I came to the creation energy teaching. It was very clear to me. I didn't really have many doubts about the authenticity of it. Just as soon as I got into the material and started reading it, it was kind of like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense and it's logical. And the sheer volume of it, um, you can be studying this material for your entire life and still have a long ways to go. So I just wanted to share that with people. Sometimes it's interesting to know how each one of us came to the material in our own way, and I hope this helps people and maybe inspires some people to search for themselves and find their own path. So for today, thank you for listening, and Salome.